Hi there, welcome to the first lecture on data storage and access. How do you get your flight logs into the cloud and how do you access them? Well, you can do this using one of the apps listed, for example, the Lychee app. You just have to put your healthydrones.com token into the app and then that will automatically sync your flights. For those of you who want to sync the data from DJI Go and Go 4, you'll need to install the HD app from Healthy Drones, and that will sync the DJI Go app data. Great. Well, you're going to need to use a token, and this you can get from the Airdata website. Just create an account, even a free account. Go to the My Account section, scroll down, and you'll see your user token. That's unique to you, and you can set that up on all of your drones, not just a single drone. And as I said, you can do that in the HD sync, and you can also do it in specific apps if you want. If you go to the upload section of the website, you'll see that they talk about the automatic and manual method where you can actually upload the file manually. But I recommend just setting the app on your mobile device to auto, and that will allow you to automatically upload. I think the manual upload is possibly a workaround, for example, for the Phantom 4 Pro Plus, where you can't use the app. Okay, once you've uploaded your flight data to the website, you now have access to it. So if you go to the second major tab, which is called My Logs, you will see a snapshot. So basically what you have on your left is a bunch of dates. These are the dates that you went on your various flights. You then have a bunch of subcategories here. The first is flights. You could also be looking at batteries, drones, maintenance reports, but those will be covered in different lectures. And then you have an average. And this is basically your flight ranges. So firstly, it will tell you how many active flights you've got on the system. So I started recording this in 2015. I've got 555 active flights logged. My plan goes up to 3,000. You can see you can segment this according to pilots. At the moment there's only myself, and you can segment it according to drones. Now you'll see there's a lot of drones here called default, and we're going to come in and clean this up. I'll show you how to do that just now. Then it logs the total airtime. It also shows you your longest flight time, and that was 21 minutes 18 seconds. Quite a lot less than the advertised longest flight time, but still. And it kind of gives you a ranking whether you're beginner or extreme. Then your furthest home distance of 2,000 meters. And this is an interesting flight. So if I want to actually see this flight, I just simply click on it and I'll control click to bring up a separate tab. And this flight here was where I actually used the follow feature to follow a vehicle that was moving, and that's why I did such a long distance. So quite interesting. I can look at the date, I can go into all the details, and I can estimate what that flight was. So you've got access to the details of the flight, which we'll come back to in a sec. Highest altitude 1,530 meters. Okay, this I was very curious about. I got the nickname Cloud Seeker. I very rarely go over 400 feet, very rarely. So I was very shocked when I saw this. So when I clicked on it and opened it up, I realized that this was linking me back to China mainland. And for some reason it stored the altitude difference. Obviously it had home lock at some point in China, and it kept this on the logs, and maybe this is when they were testing the drone before they sent it out, so that's quite funny. Then in terms of media, I've taken 4,103 photographs and 945 videos. I have total kilometerage for all my flights. I have the hottest battery temperature. That's quite concerning, 70.95 degrees, so that's something to look into. The longest range in a flight was 5.6 kilometers, and the fastest speed 76 kilometers per hour. That was done using the Phantom 4 Pro in sports mode. Right, let's have a look at what happens when we go into the settings link on the My Logs page. It'll bring up your display units. You can change your date and time format to something that's convenient for you. You can also change your system from metric to imperial, and in each one of those you've got subcategories. So it really gives you a lot of choice as to how you want to read your data, making it very customizable, which I think is awesome. You then have access to other parts of the site from here, such as billing, shares, that's where you would have shared a flight or data with someone outside, pilots, this is where you get to add pilots, and your auto upload token. So also useful. Okay, so from the My Logs page, I can look at a specific flight if I want to. All I have to do is click on a flight from this list. So let me choose March the 14th. What you'll notice is it brings me into an overview in the general section. In the very middle of the page, I've got a map showing my flight path. And this is very useful because it immediately helps me recognize this particular flight. Further down, if I scroll down, you will see some thumbnails that are cached together in the logs. Now, if you click on these thumbnails and you go to the photos page, what they tell you is the following files were extracted from the log. The log contains only up to the last 4 photos or video thumbnails in low resolution, and sometimes you won't have any logged photographs. And just interestingly enough, with the Lychee app, you can get up to 10 thumbnails. So the thumbnails are really there just to help you orientate yourself and remember this flight a little bit better, especially if you took a lot of photographs and you're not sure which flight you're looking at. The thumbnails are there and they're useful. Coming back to the overview page, let's just go through all the information. Firstly, we've got the time and date. We have the name of the plane or the drone, which is the Phantom 4 Pro. The time in the air, 13 minutes and 9 seconds. Takeoff battery. Landing battery, so I can see I landed at 44%. The app that I used, which was the DJI Go 4 app. Total distance that I covered. The maximum distance from home point. Maximum altitude. Maximum speed. Maximum battery temperature. And then 3 tips and 6 warnings, and we'll discuss this in more detail in the analysis lecture. At the top, you'll see it has the date and time. That's the default recording, and you can change this to give it a title. So in this case, I give it a title, Look Down Flyby of Trees. I try and use a description that is most relevant and easy for me to remember. I then click Save, and now my title has been changed. And this is very useful for when I want to find this in my logs or in my reports, and you'll see the name is over there. So you can take your time after your flights, or maybe you want to do it on a once-a-week basis, to go through all your flights and just change the title, maybe add a description if you want to. So if I scroll down over here and I want to add a flight description, okay, I've created a simple description: easy morning flight over tallest trees at Delta Park, working on the look down flyby shot. Now, if there was an incident or something memorable, for example, bumped into the tree or propeller got chipped or anything that really is important, I can put it in the description. I can then save it, and now this flight has got a title, it has a description, and it'll be more useful to me when I create my report or log file. Okay, next I can click on the details view. Remember, we're still in the general section, and this just has a little bit of more additional information, such as your lat and long and your address and so on. Notifications, this is mostly useful for analysis. What you'll see is there's a bunch of events that happened along the way, and if I scroll down, you'll see all the events have got information that's pertinent. In some cases there's a mode, there's a tip, there's warning. We'll go into this in more detail in the analysis lecture, but that's under your notifications. And this is particularly useful if you crash or have some sort of incident and you want to understand and diagnose what went wrong. Was it the pilot error that caused the accident? Was it something that happened on the DJI flight controller? You're going to need this information, and it's very useful to diagnose it. You can also click on the large map view, and that allows you to scroll over and click on one of these icons, and it'll give you an event ID and tell you what happened. And then finally, what I showed you previously is the photos view. And in this case, on the map, you can actually see in green all the photographs you took and where you were facing. In blue, all the videos you took and where you were facing. You can't see the actual photo or video, except for those thumbnails, which we've only got 4, but you get information on these various items. So item A is a video. It took place at 2 minutes 13, at a certain altitude and home distance. The gimbal was 90 degrees down, the heading was so-and-so, and it just gives you a good way of remembering where you took your photos and your videos, and this can also be useful to hand over to your client. Now I'm going to be taking you through the batteries and drones tabs so you can see how to manage those easily. We're going to start with batteries. The first thing that you'll notice is that most of my batteries have been labeled, but some of them haven't, and that's going to be the purpose of what I'm going to show you. So starting at the bottom, my Phantom 3 Professional, I've got battery 1, 2 and 3. The Phantom 4, which I sold, I had 3 batteries, so I call that old Phantom 4 1, 2 and 3. And then at the top, Mavic 1, 2 and 3. And then you're going to see over here we've got a default. Okay, we've got another one labeled Phantom 4 1, we've got an unlabeled battery and so on. So let's see how we can fix this problem. So starting with Phantom 4 Professional, I'm actually using a battery that can be on the Phantom 4, which is 5350 milliamps. So I decided to call that Phantom 4 Professional Regular 1. And moving up, you'll see that I did that for battery number 2. The third battery that I use on my Phantom 4 Professional is one of the big batteries, which is a 5870 milliamp. So we need to give that a name, and let's give that a name now. We click on Edit Battery Details, we give it a name, Phantom 4 Professional Large, and we save battery details. Then we can move up to the next battery, which is called Default. So the problem with this default battery is that it doesn't have a serial number, and without a serial number we can't actually merge it with another battery. So what we're going to have to do is just leave that as a default P4 battery. And let's move up to the last one. And what you'll see is this is the same one, the 5870. And what I want to do is I want to merge it with the one called Large. There's no point in having them both separate. So I click on Merge. And from the drop down I select Phantom P4P Large and Merge. It then tells you, you're sure you want to merge these batteries? You can always unmerge as well. So now I merge the information from these two batteries. And remember, you can undo the merge on the overview page. And if you look at it here, we now only have one battery called Phantom 4 Professional Large. Okay, let's just discuss the kind of information you can access in the General tab. The Trends tab I'll cover in the Analysis lecture. So firstly, we've discussed the name, which you must rename, the type of battery, the model, capacity, whether it's operational or not, and then whether you can set it as your go-to battery. It also provides you when you last used it, purchased it, the printed serial number. You can see this lacks an internal serial number, and then the last flight, which you can click on and go and look at. You can also add notes to this battery, which is pretty useful. So if anything happened to it that you want to record, just put it in the notes section. Looking at usage, here you get some very useful information, starting with the number of flights logged on record, the total airtime, average airtime per flight, the lowest reported life, total battery charges, total log time, that's air and ground combined, maximum temperature and lowest initial capacity. Also useful information. Just something to bear in mind that I noticed on the Airdata website. It talks about limited battery info. As of the Go 4.06 app, battery information in the log is limited, so temperature, cell deviations and amperage use are not currently available. Just bear that in mind. And then you can look at flight history. And here you get a list of all your flights that you can go into with pertinent information. So if you, for example, see that the last flight here hit a maximum of 51.95, and that's quite high compared to the rest, maybe you can look into that flight and see what happened. Then you have the trend section, which we'll cover in the next lecture for analysis. Now let's move over to the drones tab. Okay, looking on the left, you'll see the drones that I've got on record. Even if you sell a drone or damage it and no longer use it, keep it on record because you might want to refer back to it in your logs. And what you can see here is, firstly, I have the Mavic, and then I've got some defaults which we need to fix up. And there's Lawrence P4, P4, P4 Pro, so there's a little bit of fixing and cleaning we need to do here. Let's go through that. Let's start at the bottom with the Phantom 3 Professional. What you can see is there's 4 entries for the Phantom 3 Professional. There's LAR P3P, default P3P, again and again. And I want to merge all of these together because we know that they're all Phantom 3 Professionals. Let's just go up and make sure. You'll see this one here, default, doesn't have the serial numbers. The third one is the LAR P3P, same serial number as the first one. And then finally, the name that I want, which is Lawrence P3P. So let's go down to the one on the bottom. Starting with that, let's click on Merge, and let's merge it with Lawrence P3P. That's the name that I want to reference. Okay, great. So now it's joined into the Lawrence P3P, which is the one that I want to reference. Let's go down to the default. Okay, then the default P3P drone, because it has no serial numbers, I'm not able to do a merge. So I'm going to have to leave that as default P3P drone. But let's change the name just to make it easier to understand. I'm going to call it Lawrence P3P no serial. And then finally, LAR P3P, which does have a serial number, I'm going to merge that to Lawrence P3P. So we have one Phantom 3 Professional without a serial, and then one Phantom 3 Professional, which was merged from 3 entries. And that just cleans it up. Now I'm going to go up ahead and clean up the rest. Okay, so I've now cleaned up the list. Where it doesn't have a serial number, I've indicated no serial, and we can basically see Phantom 3 Professional, Phantom 4 Professional, and Mavic. Now we're on the Mavic page. Let's have a look at the information we get. So looking at the usage, we can see for this Mavic how many flights we've logged on record, total airtime, average airtime per flight, total mileage, total logged time, air and ground, and the maximum temperature. And then looking at flight history, we get a list of all the flights that we've done with this particular drone with the airtime. Then coming back to the flights section in the overview tab, you'll see on the left we have a few other tabs: power, sensors, controls, and wind. And I'll be dealing with these in the next lecture, which is going to be dealing with the analysis of the flight data. So I'll see you in the next lecture, and thank you for watching this one.